So thank you, Rashmi. So the next talk we have has references from the popular press. Those that don't know the story time and the tropical environment were not kind to the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico. And I don't say that nearly as cool as Julio does, Julio, when he says Arecibo in Puerto Rico. And the cables broke with disastrous results. And if you haven't seen it, just go to YouTube and search for Arecibo. And this story is near and dear to my heart, as I was privileged to be involved in this project in a small part. But these are the guys that really did and are continue to do the heavy lifting, and they're going to tell you the real story and how Globus fits in. So it's my pleasure to introduce Julio Alvarado Negron, and again, I don't say that nearly as cool as he does, from the University of Central Florida. And when I say heavy lifting, I think he literally did the heavy lifting of picking up the NAS boxes and moving them from Arecibo to UPR. And also George Robb. And George is the only guy I know that can actually squeeze bandwidth out of thin air. So take it away, guys.
All righty, awesome. Let's say that we only had a few cable snaps, and I'm good. So again, thank you guys. Good afternoon. Thanks first of all to Globus for the invitation. My name is Julio. I'm the Big Data Program Manager at the Arecibo Observatory, and I'll be sharing more than the use case that we have, but also our experience with Globus and the passion, the instrument, the discoveries, and of course the recent events that we've had since August last year, and also our biggest data movement effort, obviously enabled by Globus. I'll be sharing my slides today with a great colleague, George from Epoch and SNet. So after me, please stay tuned for his slides. Alrighty, so I wanna start doing a quick overview of what's big data for us, a scientific institution. We may all know that big data is exactly that, a lot of data, structure and non-structure. In our case, it's the majority is non-structure. So it doesn't follow like a homogeneous pattern, or it could be easily represented on a database. And also the optimal resources to enable its management. To put it in perspective, Arecibo Observatory, AO, had the capacity with the previous instruments before the collapse to generate over 80 terabytes per day. So today, after 55 years, Arecibo's archives are approximately 3 petabytes. Having Globus facilitating this data transfer will not only help on this current project of the data movement, but will also enable key aspects of our big picture goals in the observatory. For example, developing a data management and governance practices and framework with the data that we are just moving or copying to the TAC, the Texas Advanced Computing Center. It will also facilitate the access to the community to the AO archives. And here I want to give particular emphasis. From our whole big picture, I think this is the item that we are more focused or we are more interested in. We have over 55 years of data, 3 petabytes, and we really are excited to make it available because we are pretty sure that there's a lot of discoveries that haven't been discovered because, let's say, we didn't have the computer resources back in the time, we didn't have the time, or we didn't have the right platform to provide the access to the research community. And also implementing best practices and tools from other colleagues in the research community. One of the biggest lessons that I've got from this multi-team effort is that there's a whole research community out there, and just having them accessible in our hand, it has been the greatest and the most rewarding experience for us. So yeah. Right. To give a context of the data that I'm going to be speaking on the future slides, Arecibo focused mainly on three sciences: radio astronomy, that studied the waves produced by an astronomical object, for example, the suns, the planets, the pulsars, and so on. We also had atmospheric sciences. It studied the Earth gas envelope, the ionosphere, where the radio waves were influenced the most. And we also had a third science, planetary radar, that studied the characterization of bodies in the solar system. Some of them were asteroids, the moon, and even Venus. Also, I want to share what was our most sensitive and perhaps the most popular instrument that we had at Arecibo, the ALPHA, the Arecibo L-band feed array. And it was recognized because it had 7 beams operating near the 1 gigahertz frequency. And for the more techie people, that's the frequency where the fine transition of hydrogen can be observed. So that's why the radar operated at that frequency. The alpha was mainly used passively, that meaning that the instrument was left pointing in a receiving mode to a target space while the Earth rotated. So imagine having a microphone listening to the space, and while the Earth rotates, you create kind of a belt that scans the space as it rotates. So that's passive for us. That's an instrument that was left static, listening while the Earth rotated. And this particular instrument, it was capable of generating an aggregate data stream of 875 megabytes per second. So the 7 beams, 875 megabytes per second, that's close to 75, 76 terabytes per day. That's assuming that the instrument was running 24/7. Now, one of the biggest improvements that we were able to achieve with this instrument was the characterization of Venus. The figure on the left, it was taken in 1971 with radar. And you can see it was pretty raw. It didn't have too much details. But then in 2015, after the implementation of the alpha, they were able to get a more detailed view, which is evidence of the great improvement in technology, and also on the details and the analysis that were done to the data taken. And how did this happen? Well, the radar beams from the alpha, they were able to cut through the dense haze and the clouds and come back to Arecibo, and they were received by the 305-meter dish for processing. So that was one of the advantages of these instruments that allowed taking resolution like this. Another discovery that still amazes the scientists are the fast radar bursts, FRBs. Arecibo, we were not the first ones to discover, but we were able to back up the Charles-Parkes telescope in Australia. They discovered the first one in 2012, and then in 2015 we were able to confirm their discovery. We were able to confirm that this event had a repetition period of 157 days. So that's a signal that shows up for 90 days and then goes quiet for 67 days, and then at day 157 came back and repeated the same pattern. This particular data set has over 150, probably 200 terabytes of data. And at this point, believe it or not, our scientists are still analyzing this data. And this is a project that was taken 1 year ago, probably 1.5 years ago. So imagine what could have happened with the data that we have from 55 years ago. So it's just to put in perspective what we're dealing with here in terms of requirements for computing and the amount of data that we're working with. And yeah, Globus, it's enabling our unoptimized transfer of data. One of the sales pitch that I got from Greg and the team back in December, it's that Globus it's not only a tool to transfer the data. It handles all of the checksums, all the safety, all the restarts, all the pauses. It handles so much things that we only had to select the files, select where we're gonna be moving the data, and just click go. and it will take charge of all of those steps in the middle. Righty, now on my home field, talking about analytics, I'm gonna drive quickly through this. So we at Arecibo, we have over 1,800 projects or proposals. So about 2/3 out of them, they were focused on the astronomy science, and then 1/3 focused on the planetary radar. And also probably around half of the observations done at Arecibo, they were done to our solar system, to the Milky Way, and nearly 20% of them, they were done looking outside of the Milky Way. So we were really curious about what's not only in our galaxy, but what was beyond that. Now this chart at the left really blows my mind. You know, we have logged over 135,000 hours of observations. So this was distributed across over 45,000 observation stations. So if we put together all of the observed hours, we have the equivalent of 15 years nonstop of science. And think about it, for over 45,000 times, we had scientists and staff at Arecibo that got together to make science happen. And that, you know, to me, even living in Puerto Rico, I never imagined that scale and that hand-on-hand relationship that the scientists had with our staff at Arecibo. So that really, really blows my mind. And also we have over 550 theses, 380 they were PhD theses, and around 87 they were master theses. So those were theses that were backed up by projects or by observations done at Arecibo. Now, what we all already know, in December we just got a few cable snaps. Let's say in August we had our first cable snap. We were very optimistic about being able to repair it, to continue working. But then we got our second cable snap. On November 6th, second cable snap caused major damage to the dish. And that's when the decision was made to decommission it, if I'm not wrong, November 10th. And then December, we got the checkmate. A main support cable broke from the Tower 4, causing the platform to fall over the dish. I'm pretty sure we all have seen the videos of the collapse. But for us, you know, I wanted to put these pictures here just to bring a sense of the scale. You know, our data center. Let me see if I can. Our data center. Wait. Our data center was located right here, right in this little white wall. And George is going to be sharing something later as well. But just to put it on a scale, you can see at the machines doing the work, and you know that dish was pretty huge. You know, and pictures that don't make justice to it. So I just wanted to put this here just to bring the sense of the scale. Right. So now let's go back to the data. So once the platform collapses, what do we do? You know, frankly, I was in a state of shock. So we had to focus on two main items. First one, what data we have, how much data we have, and where is it? So Arecibo has close to 3 petabytes of data on site, and this includes hard drives and tape library. We have a catalog of over 1,800 projects in over 20 million files. Now our problem statement: how do we create a safe copy of it? First constraint: Arecibo has an internet connection of 1 gigabit per second. So that was right off the bat our first roadblock that we had to overcome. Second, with that 1 gigabit connection, we will take over 24 months to transfer the 3 petabytes out of Arecibo to TAC. And third, by that time, we didn't have the partnership with TAC yet, but the question was, where do we store it? How do we transfer the data? Who we can leverage to get a faster connection? And that's where my SOS call came. and the working groups were formed. To me, this is the slide that I want you guys to take away from my presentation. And I'm going to be frank, it really took me over a week to realize what happened and understand that we were not able to do this alone. I reached out to UCF Office of Research, and then from there, frankly, like magic, the human network got together, and I had a team of over 6 working groups, hungry to help us. And not only help us, but also help the research community. And I wanna make a shout out here, big thank you. I can't thank enough, but I think this is a great start. First of all, Epoch and SNet, they are providing transfer and hardware optimization, network best practices, and project management. The CICOE, the Cyber Infrastructure Center of Excellence, they are providing data management practices, project management. The TAC, Texas Advanced Computing Center, they are providing the high performance computing and storage. University of Puerto Rico, they were since day one that they were contacted by the SNet team, they were more than willing to help us, and they are sharing their 10 gigabit connection via AMPath. So they are one of our key partners for data transfer. And also Engine 4, they are a local nonprofit collaboration space, and they just happen to have a 10 gigabit connection line there. And they were more than kind enough to practically dedicate that 10 gig line for us. So, and obviously, let me stop here. After all, this is a Globus work, right? So of course, Globus is part of this effort, and worth noting that their support to Arecibo is not just providing the platform to transfer the data. They have been supporting the project by also sharing their resources and best practices. And shout out to Greg, who has literally been patient enough with me, with the team, and he's guiding us technically weekly on a weekly basis. So thank you, Globus. Thank you, Greg, for the great support that you are providing us on this Arecibo data movement effort. And on my last slide, I want to compare and bring some numbers of how the transfer looked before and after Globus. I will try not to get into much detail because that's George will be getting more into more detail there. So what we ended up doing, we created a shuttle mechanism. So our first step was to load the data at Arecibo into 5 NAS devices, into 5 appliances. We loaded the data in Arecibo, and then myself and the team at Arecibo, we were basically driving the assets into one of our partners, to San Juan at the University of Puerto Rico, at Engine 4, and Mayagüez at the University of Puerto Rico. So we take the boxes to the partners, then we start the upload, and once they finish uploading, then we return the box back to Arecibo, and then we drive another box back to the partners. So some benchmark on the numbers that technically to me they blow my mind, and I know George will bring more details. Before Globus, the team used to use rsync to transfer the data from Arecibo, and that resulted in an average of 42 megabytes using commercial 10 gigabit line and 47 megabytes using the UPR's AMPath wire. So once Globus Connect was installed and configured, which by the way, it was easy using their CentOS distribution in our appliances, the average upload speed reported has been sustained at over 200 megabytes per second on both commercial and AMPath wires. And we are currently able to upload over 120 terabytes of data in 6 days. And worth mentioning, we think that the appliances we are using are limiting the full potential of the transfers. With 10 gigabit wire, we are getting 200 megabytes per second. So theoretically, we can get more than that, but we are pinpointing it to the appliance itself. And this morning, I noticed one question about someone asking if they will be able to take advantage from Globus in 1 gigabit line. And I want to share an experience. We also happen to have a 1 gigabit line at Engine 4 and a 1 gigabit network card in one of the appliances. And before Globus, we were getting an average of 22 megabytes per second. And then after Globus, we got 110 megabytes per second. So the first time we moved 70 terabytes in over 30 days, and the second time with Globus, it took almost 7 days. So I'll say that yes, you will see advantages with Globus on 1 gigabit links. So yeah, guys, circling back and wrapping up, thanks to this multi-team effort at Arecibo, I'm really confident that sits in a better position to build our long-term data strategy. Globus is definitely a critical partner now and in the future strategy as well. So yeah, it's my pleasure to pass the mic to Mr. George Robb from SNet. Thank you.
Hey team, and everyone, thank you for having me here, and I'm so glad to be able to present. Like Julio was mentioning, it's been quite the ride. It's been quite the adventure. Apologies, I'm going to move it so I can try and make eye contact with everyone. I'm George Robb. I'm part of the Engagement and Performance Operations Center team. I'm a performance chaser. I love tuning systems, and during my day job, I guess you could say, Energy Sciences Network Infrastructure team. So systems administration and trying to make bandwidth appear out of thin air. It's quite a exciting role to have. As you guys have heard, Arecibo Observatory is definitely a treasure of sciences since 1963. It's been an inspiration for everybody. I mean, planetary, atmospheric, the full spectrum from 1 gigahertz all the way to 10 gigahertz, active astronomical instrument. Distances of Pleiades cluster, metrics, tons of scientific discoveries and publications. Have a link there just to go take a peek at some of the things that have been discovered. I'm sure everybody has some sort of concept of Arecibo in the back of their mind. We're going to tell a little bit of story about taking a hit and keep on ticking. But in this one, it takes a hit and keeps on doing science. These are some of the headlines that I found, and part of it starts the story back in 2006. Belt tightening. National Science Foundation had to cut about 15% of the budget across astronomical sciences. Arecibo's budget was hit 10.5 to 8 mil. NASA pitched in with a $2.6 million assistance to help the operations budget. A key point that I want to bring up, and I'll talk on a little bit more, is that in 2011, the National Science Foundation implements the data management plan requirement. Major facilities definitely take heed and Google the data management plan from the National Science Foundation. Another part, based on the economic belt tightening, Facilities Director Kerr quits in 2015, and in 2018, University of Central Florida takes on stewardship. So finally, some stability. Operations have been working tirelessly to make science happen throughout all of this. That's along the lines of taking a hit. But there's more. They take another hit. So in September 20th of 2017, there's a little hurricane, just a category 4. Hurricane Maria came and caused severe damage. The R&E network connection was lost and has remained offline since 2012. That was a 10 gig line to UPR. Too expensive to cut or too expensive to repair due to budget issues. And again, operations resumed, the science continues. But they take another hit. 5.0 to 6.4 earthquakes. This sample I have here is just a light picture of a few of them you can see the shake map. And this was just January 7th to 11th of 2020. Shaken but not stirred, and operations keep on going. And yeah, 007 reference, everybody knows of GoldenEye. And again, we're going to take another hit. Another tropical storm comes along. This is in July 30th of 2020. Science and operations keep going, but as we heard Julio talk about, the first cable snap, the second cable snap, and finally, thermodynamics, economics, and gravity win. The instrument fell. So you notice this arrow here. That's building 1. And you can see the damage of the scope and the towers and the Gregorian dome just in pure rubble. Building 1 is the primary data center. Debris hit less than 10 meters away. We were 10 meters away from losing 50 plus years of priceless scientific data. Just let that sink in for a moment. And then, as Julio had mentioned, and I even call out his slide, in a second, as that came crashing down, everything came to a different frame of mind. Truly, thermodynamics, economics, and gravity won. So, mission began. Let's get to work. Let's get the data to a safe and stable state. So, out of the gates, 2 petabytes have to be moved. The fiber is still cut. We're sitting here with a transfer of megabytes with petabytes to go. Data movement is literally at a scale of years. We're using advanced, network attached storage devices. These are prosumer appliances. These are able to be carried via SneakerNet. And we're doing about a byte of data at 100 terabytes at a time. That's the full capacity RAID 0 of one of these appliances. The on-site team, and this is speaking volumes to the operations team, the on-site team is quite literally hand carrying this priceless data to the closest 10 gig link. And they're trying to get it to the RUM at UPR and Engine 4 collaboration space to get this data moving. There's a call for assistance, and this is where the team forms. And this is fun to see, where it's not a technical problem. This is where us, the community, everybody who's part of this call, everybody who's ever worked with any form of data science, the EPIC team, engagements, this is where the human network really comes into play. EPIC themselves, we formulated an architectural solution of what can be implemented with the tools that are at hand. We don't want to prescribe anything. We would like to see what can we do with what we've got. Globus, basically, let's get this data on the wire. Let's melt those fibers. Let's see what we can do to get this data across and into a safe, stable spot. UPR, Engine 4, they're providing 10 gig links. We've got a lot to work with now. UCF, facilitating these migrations. And then TAC, oh man, let's catch the data. So, EPIC, we work with UCF teams to understand the nature of the problem. We're coming up with a course of action and trying to architect what we can do. The people are the network here, right? So let's make this happen. And again, I want to call out the community in general, because it really knocked it out of the park. So a general thank you to the community. And then understanding this problem set, like, these are not trivial times, as we all know. I mean, we're not in person, we're over a Zoom session. So different times. The site cannot accept new installations. I mean, as we saw in the picture, the bulldozer for scale, it's a cleanup effort at this point. There's a global pandemic going on, as we all know, and we can't just ship hardware. Again, can't accept new installations. The closest 10 gig link is an hour drive away. And again, this goes to a shout out to UPR and Engine 4 for having a destination to get these network attached storage devices to. The network attached storage devices, that's also something to mention here. So they're movable, so we can actually hand carry them and take advantage of SneakerNet. They're small but mighty solutions. They need to be tuned. Out of the gate, they're designed to move data, small home, office, that type of thing. When EPIC was presented with this problem, we got a replica device and we put our shoulder into it and we tuned it as if it was a data transfer node. Some of you will be familiar with the science DMZ patterns and faster data that ESNet provides. We took everything that we knew there and applied it directly to these network attached devices. Call for assistance also, TAC, Texas Advanced Computing Center. Again, thank you. They offered to catch and distribute this data. They, for lack of better terms, waved a magic wand and created a safe and secure 2 petabyte landing zone. Here, let's catch. They've also been monitoring, taking full advantage of helping with tuning, and then dashboarding the progress too. Oh, and just to state, there are Globus native landing zones. So woohoo, we can actually go Globus to Globus. Makes it all the difference. And then, of course, I can't help but mention Globus with this. They've always been part of this team, and then also offered additional in-person support. They've been on our weekly meetings, and it's been great to be able to bounce ideas and questions across the teams. And then, as mentioned earlier, Julio was mentioning rsync versus Globus. Of course, the spoiler alert is Globus is the obvious winner there. And to review, we were on a time scale of years to move 2 petabytes of data. And tuning the data transfer nodes, or in this case, our appliance, only helped. And another spoiler, at this point, the teams are pulling data from tape. So the primary copies of spinning Rust are now in a safe, secure location. To even hit this home a little bit harder, here's an example. And this is not including the hand carry time. This is just raw transfers. And the scale is in days. So on that 1 gig link, when we talked about the math and the transfer rate, it was going to take 1,005 days to get that data across. After tuning the network attached storage and taking advantage of Globus, we're looking at 228 days. The 10 gig link, we were looking at 611 days, 102. And again, mentioning we're pulling data from tape at this point. Again, I want to mention that it's so much more than the technical problems. It's so much more than the data. This is a situation where full disaster recovery went into place. A call for assistance happened. The community was engaged. Everybody was quite literally hungry to help solve this problem. We all know how important the Arecibo data is. We know how important science is to keep all this moving. So we dived in. We did the best we could. We looked at the tools we had. We used Globus. We used what we knew. We used ESNet, the faster data, the DMZ patterns, the data transfer node tunings, the data movement exposition to get frameworks and baselines, and then overall tunings. I mean, if you think about it, that can only make Globus shine all the better when you have a well-tuned system. And then, of course, the Epic team that we're part of. This is an easy and quick way that anyone can supercharge your human network. We only use the tools that are available. We're never going to prescribe something. Show us what you got. Let's see what we can do. Let's do a deep dive. Let's engage and see how we can make things perform better. And we believe, of course, there's no such thing as silver bullets. So let's see what this problem can do. And then the overall mission is to hit the target. I want to take a few moments for a word of caution. It was called out in some of the previous talks, the risk, the fault lines, the fires, the earthquakes. We hit full disaster recovery here. The instrument fell. Arecibo, it's been around 50 plus years and it fell. So basically, the think on this for a moment is basically, how do we do this? What do we do next? So where do we put our frame of mind? The network is part of the instrument. In this situation, 2012, link was cut. Budget was part of the equation. There wasn't time to repair it. Where do we go? The 2011 National Science Foundation's data management plan. I even put a link here. Take a gander at that. Take a look at it. Parse through it. There's some great tidbits in there. Major facilities have that plan ready. Large facilities, and just all the large facilities out there, think in the back of your mind, where's your data management plan? How up to date is it? What's your replica sites looking like? How are they doing? When was the last replica? What's the cadence? Backups, have you tested them? I always hate testing backups. It's just one of those things that's like, ooh, is it going to work? We should never have to have that stress. And then, of course, fiber paths. The network is part of the instrument. The fiber paths are important. And then words of caution with hope to them. You've got tools at your disposal. You've got this wonderful community. If you have any problems, if you need assistance, engage with Epic. We're happy to help. We literally want to do engagement and performance. We're here for you. I have a couple of contact slides here, or contact information things. And then, of course, ESNet, Energy Sciences Network. Sciences ISP, we're ready to help. Data transfer nodes, I want to make a specific call out. some of the tunings that we did, or getting that bandwidth from thin air, is well documented out on that Faster Data website. Also, see if you can participate in the data mobility exposition. This is going to be a lot of fun. Goal, let's hit 1 terabyte in a day. If not, engage with us. Let's get it faster. And then, of course, I want to call out the ISI, Center for Excellence pilot, and it goes again to the data management. And with that, that's my last slide. I'll leave this up, and I'm happy to take questions, or we can go from there.
Great, thank you so much, guys. You know, one of the cool things I thought about the project was Julio had that constantly updating Excel spreadsheet, and you could see as we started tuning, his numbers for ETD would just keep going down, So that was just really cool to see. There is one question, and this seems like, and I've seen it actually on a couple different channels, this seems like a pretty specialized instrument. What's going to happen next? Is there any, is there any plans to construct a new one? What's next?
Okay, so there's a few proposals submitted. Definitely, we are going to rebuild. How it's going to be looking like, we don't know. It all depends how we move day by day. But definitely, the idea is to, first of all, keep Arecibo doing science work with the instruments that we still have. Because remember, what failed was the main dish. We still have a few more instruments on our premises that we can still continue doing science. So that's our plan. Keep doing sciences with the instrument that we have while we work on improving or getting new instruments or getting the long-term Arecibo 2.0. But how it's going to be looking like, that's something that I don't think anyone can tell right now. But we are definitely working to bring Arecibo back into the science map.